Alright, what's up guys? My name is Zach, and for the last 7 days, I've been driving the 2025 Acura RDX A-Spec. Up front is a 2.0-liter turbocharged inline-4, and down below is a 10-speed automatic transmission. Now, I am super excited to be making this video for two reasons. First of all, I've been driving this A-Spec RDX for the last 7 days. I put a good amount of mileage on this car, and I have plenty of thoughts and opinions to share with you. But the second reason is the fact that I've always really liked Acuras, but I don't film a whole lot of them here on the channel, so I'm always excited to bring you guys another Acura product on the Shooting Cars channel. But if you would like to submit your own vehicle and have it reviewed here on the channel, you can head on over to my website, zackpradel.com/submit. It's a quick and easy submission form. It takes under a minute to fill out, and I come out to you. But let's get back to that 2-liter turbo under the hood. Some people might shrug at seeing a 4-cylinder turbo in an SUV here on the channel. And to be fair, the last several 4-cylinder turbo SUVs that we've tested haven't been great. Looking at you, Buick Enclave. But it actually works really, really well here in the RDX A-Spec. Now, the larger MDX, the MDX from Acura, does still get the 3.5-liter V6, which is a Honda J-Series engine, which is reliable as the day is long. So, if you do still want a V6, you can go up to the MDX, but this is the 2-liter, and honestly, I haven't had a single issue with it my entire time with it. It drives great. It's lovely, it's responsive, and it's sporty. It's fun to drive, and we'll talk about some other attributes that it has past the engine. Like I said, paired to it is a 10-speed automatic. It's doing the job, it's shifting and operating well. Of course, there is no manual option, and I like it. I like the 10-speed. Last but not least, this particular RDX is all-wheel drive. It has the SH Super Handling all-wheel drive system from Acura, and it is great not only in the dry pavement, but this week that I had this car, we got our first snow here in the Chicagoland area, and it handled it like an absolute champ. Even on these all-season tires, I didn't have any worry in the snow. I didn't feel any slipping. Even when I wanted the car to slip, it still wouldn't do it. So plenty of confidence here in the RDX, which I appreciate. How does it feel to drive the RDX A-Spec? It's nice. Like I said, it has really good chassis dynamics. The suspension is a little bit stiffer than you would find in other more luxurious SUVs, but I personally like that. The closest this thing drives to is the turbo Mazda CX-5, of which is probably my favorite SUV. This RDX comes very, very close, and there's only one interior feature that I really dislike that keeps me from it being my favorite SUV. So driving-wise, it is top shelf. Visibility is good. Throttle response is great, especially in sport mode, so no complaints here from old Zackaroonie. With that stuff out of the way, let's talk about the interior. Well, in front of me, I have 2 gauges and a screen. Off to the left is my tachometer, and off to the right is my speedometer. And when you turn the vehicle off, you hear an almost Formula One noise going by you. Really, really cool to hear. We also do get that screen in the center gauge cluster for a bunch of things that I'll cycle through now. I'm going to try to kill some time while I cycle through everything, but you do get a lot of information, pretty standard for modern cars of what you get to see, but definitely nice to see here in the RDX. I hope that was enough pages. Speaking of which, how to select those pages: on the steering wheel, on the left we have our heated steering wheel to the upper right, volume to the left, back, voice commands, and apps down below, and off to the right we have our information button, our selectors for that gauge cluster screen, as well as our adaptive cruise control. We also do get an A-Spec badge and this nice perforated leather with the stitching going around the steering wheel. Love that look. Off to the left, we do have a climate control vent and a bunch of buttons. This is going to be a running theme. There's a lot of buttons and switches in here. So we have our head-up display tilt, parking sensors, safety features, head-up display brightness, heated windshield wipers, traction control off, brake hold, dead switch, and our power parking brake. On the door, we have 2 levels of memory seats, as well as this carbon fiber inspired material, I'll say, pattern, I should say. We do have our ELS Studio 3D speaker, power mirrors, power locks, and power windows, and moving into the center, we get our infotainment screen. We do have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, as well as the standard Acura system, of which one cool thing in here is that we do get ambient lighting lighting that we can change around, and we could change the themes. I'll have you take a glance at all these different themes that you could pick. So it's not just one singular color throughout, and it's not a little color wheel. You actually get themes, which is really, really cool. And of course, I've had it on the Vegas Strip all week because I was on the Vegas Strip this week while I had this car. I'll share more about that in the final thoughts segment. We do have a backup camera and 360 camera, which has been very helpful. However, this screen is not touchscreen, and we'll talk about that in a second. Down below, we do have our volume, skip track, and hazard switch, and our climate controls, as well as heated and ventilated seats that are both automatic. We have our auto start stop and our dynamic mode switch. So we have several drive modes here in the Acura RDX for snow, comfort, normal, and sport, and I absolutely adore all of the video animations that you get when you switch between those drive modes. So very, very cool to see from Acura, and I just like that attention to detail. Then we have the shifter in the center. This is the same shifter that you'll find in a lot of Acura products, but also a lot of Honda products, so I've grown to get used to it, and I like it. Oh, but then, ladies and gentlemen, we have the trackpad, and as I mentioned earlier, this is the one reason that keeps this vehicle from being my favorite SUV, because this trackpad is so awful. Sitting still, can you get used to it and figure out how it works? Yes, of course. But like learning the shift change of the guards at a federal prison, I would rather it not be an issue in my life at all. Why have to learn something when the alternative was not having to learn anything? That's a really bad advertisement for school, but my point being, this overcomplicates the interior and the screen system dramatically. It's bad while sitting still, but don't worry, it's even worse if you're trying to move or drive and you hit a bump and you swipe and now you're on a different screen that you don't want to be on. It's not very intuitive, and I had my girlfriend try to use it. She's not a car person. She's wickedly smart, but she's not a car person, and so it took her a long time to figure out how to just get to Apple CarPlay, and that could have been avoided if it was either A, a touchscreen, or B, had a more traditional dial system like Mazda or BMW. I'll get off my high horse, but this system is bad, and I don't like it. Down below, we do have a wireless charger, which has been very helpful throughout this week, and we have cup holders, so we will do a big friggin' bottle test, and interestingly, the front cup holder fails, but the rear cup holder is just a touch bigger, and it actually does, in fact, pass the big friggin' bottle test. The center console does have a USB-A charger, and down below we have a 12-volt outlet with a USB-C charger. Kind of hard for the driver to see and put in, but once you have a charger in there, it's not hard. The seats are red, as is the rest of the interior, and I personally love it. I love red seats. I love colored interiors. It makes it pop. It makes it feel cool, and it adds to that dynamic, sporty feel. Like the gauge cluster, like that Formula One sound, and the seats, and the driving dynamics, this car feels very sporty, and I like that. However, speaking of seats, the RDX is a two-row SUV, so let's hop back there. All right, so we're in the back of the 2025 Acura RDX A-Spec, and a couple of things to note. First of all, headroom great and knee room great, which can't be said about a lot of this vehicle's competitors. Again, I'm going to keep going back to the Mazda CX-5 Turbo. This has a better back seat than that, and my parents own one of those, so I've spent many a times in the back seat of the CX-5, and I much prefer being in the back of the RDX. So nice to see that. I also have two climate control vents, heated seats back here, as well as two USB-C chargers, ELS Studio 3D speakers on the door, and we do get a center console with two more cup holders that will for sure not pass the big friggin' bottle test, but that's okay, not everything has to. Nothing crazy beyond that. I do get to enjoy the panoramic roof. Look up, camera guy, there you go. Beautiful, but it doesn't have to be anything crazy back here, and like I said, I fit a lot better than what I would consider its main competitor. So very, very cool to see all of that. Let's hop into the trunk and take a quick look at the trunk and cargo space. Right around the back of the RDX A-Spec, we do have a press and hold button here on the key fob. We also have a starter button on the key fob as well, which has been really nice on these cold days. Once we are back here, we have my LiPo bag for my RC cars. Get that out of here. But once we are back here, we do have some storage down below. Love to see that. We also have a power outlet, a 12-volt circular outlet, and we have handles to release the second row of seats. Now, there you go. Sometimes the headrest, because that front seat is really far back, it won't go flat, but it will go flat if you move the seat all the way up. Tons of rear cargo space. Again, fantastic for the segment. So I'm really happy to see that, although they do have the MDX, which is a larger vehicle that we'll talk about a little bit later on if you do want more. Single button up here, and you can press and hold to set the height. So if your garage is really short, you can hold it here, press and hold, and it'll remember that height so it won't open up anymore so you don't damage your tailgate. But we are out in nature today, so we can put it up as high as we want. Press that button once, and the power tailgate comes right back down. Absolutely love how quiet and smooth it is. Now we gotta talk about the looks, and I don't think it's a stone cold stunner. However, I do think it is really, really good looking, and we'll do this walk around first. I like the sort of wet cement color that Acura has chosen for the press vehicle. I like the headlights and taillights are very distinctive, and I like the big wheels. However, I have reviewed a 2020 Acura RDX A-Spec, so we'll do some side-by-side comparisons. 2020, 2025, 2020, 2025, 2020, 2025. You can see that they haven't changed a whole lot in the last 5 years, although it has gotten a facelift, so you can draw your own conclusions. This is an older RDX, just happens to be in a parking lot. So, if you want some comparisons, that's an older RDX compared to this new one. I just got honked at by another Acura RDX A-Spec. I'm just seeing all of them today. They're popular. That is one thing. They are very popular. Now that I've been driving an Acura for a week, I see Acuras everywhere, which is a very good sign. With all of that being said, let's get on to my final thoughts. What do I think driving the Acura RDX A-Spec for the last 7 days? Besides that infotainment trackpad, this has been an absolutely wonderful experience. It's done everything I've wanted it to do. It drives really well. It has great features with the heated and ventilated seats, great sound system, the ambient lighting, the gauge cluster, the dynamic sounds, the feeling, the steering wheel with its perforated leather. All of it together has been absolutely excellent, to the point where, as I mentioned earlier with the ambient lighting, I actually flew to Las Vegas for one single night during my time with this alone. So I parked this car at the airport, flew to Las Vegas, and flew back without getting a hotel room. I was going to the Formula 1 race in Las Vegas, and because the race was so expensive, I didn't buy a hotel room, and when the race was over at midnight, I just Ubered back to the airport and slept in a terminal for about an hour before my flight at 5 a.m. My point being is I got on a plane. I had about an hour of sleep in the last 28 hours. Also had been to a Formula 1 race, had my eardrums blown out. And when I got back to the airport and touched down here in Chicago, this car was waiting for me. And if I was driving my other car like a Nissan Z or a Supra or Miata especially, or even a Toyota RAV4 just doesn't have that kind of build quality on the interior that you would see in here, I would have been very upset. But I got in this car, I turned my heated seat on, it was a nice quiet drive home, it was relaxing, and finally I was able to sleep in my own bed, but I was able to get there comfortably because of the RDX. It was a nice experience. There's no little rattles or squeaks or beeps in here, like you might find even in new cars from other automakers. The ride wasn't harsh, so my already broken back wasn't brokener. It soothed my headache rather than adding to it. And so for that reason, and not that reason alone, many other reasons, I love the RDX. This is such a wonderful two-row SUV, and I've thoroughly enjoyed my time with it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Huge thank you to Acura for allowing me to borrow their RDX for the last 7 days. Huge thank you to Drive Shop for facilitating the cleaning and delivery of this vehicle, and of course, the Midwestern Automotive Media Association. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Don't forget to rate the video, comment on the video, and subscribe if you really liked it. Take care, guys.